Yeah, bro. Ready to show force?
Welcome to the Other Than Honorable podcast, brought to you by none other than HP-TRT.com. If you use that discount code OTH20, I'm telling you right now, you are not going to regret it. You're going to get some freaking. It's all about quality of testosterone too, man. Like people don't understand. It's about quality of testosterone. Like I've done a lot of tea. and other things, and you got to get that pure TRT, and there's a huge difference in quality. You actually almost taste it. Yeah. I don't know. Have you tasted it before? You know what I'm talking about? Almonds and oranges or something, man. All right, forget that. What I said, that's not true, but no. I did. You feel it,
Yeah. Less is more, man. High quality is always better, man.
Yeah, high quality, less is more, for sure.
Yeah, it's also about the team, man, behind it. It's like you got some guys that know what they're doing, are efficient, actually have the wealth of knowledge and the wisdom regarding what we're talking about, because we're talking about something serious here. It's your body, and it's not something to play with. So smart blood work, accurate precision, right? Correct and accurate, right? It's more's not always better, man. And we see, man, shit can't be dangerous if you're not smart about it.
Yeah, blood work, everything. Get that TRT going on. If you're kind of iffy about it. Well, but most people by now have, at first it was taboo. Yeah. And now it's like, dude, you're not on TRT? Like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you're not on TRT, bro?
Yeah, there's some people it still is, cool. And some people talk trash about it or whatever, and I say, cool, man, but all right, do you. Like, I'm just, sorry, man. I mean, at least do your research. I mean, it's pretty obvious when people have no real understanding of it. They just sound ignorant to it, and fuck, maybe I'm ignorant to it, but I just know my experience of when I felt better and when I felt correct in my life. Because also going through the Foreign Legion, dude, you couldn't take nothing, bro. So people want to talk. They're like, oh, you're going to do selections. I never took anything going through buds, zero.
No.
And I was years off stuff before going into it. Being bigger is not better, and you're young too. And then going into the Foreign Legion, bro, you can't. You don't have access to anything. You're in like a boot camp selection. And so going into it, dude, I had to come off everything, nothing. And I just went through just cold turkey, bro. And it sucked, but it was what it was. But I definitely noticed the difference of how I felt, and I had to build my body back up. And it took years, man, to kind of get feeling better again, because it's not just, there's like a psychological piece, and it's not just about being big and strong. It's just about when your hormones are imbalanced. And I can't even imagine what my levels were at, but I was hurting, dude. It definitely didn't feel good.
And my mentality, man, it was always like I worked out just as hard off of it as I did on it. And so when I was off of it working out, I was like, dude, I might as well be on something to help me, help boost my performance in here, because I'm dying. I'm hurting in here, And it definitely, it's 100% helps. It even helps with your sleep. Obviously, your drive in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're trying to build an incredible life, dude. It starts with your body, man. And so, dude, and rebuilding that life, which is kind of an interesting segue, man. And we talking about transitioning, bro. And I'm not talking about transitioning, bro. I'm talking about military transitioning.
Oh, wait a second. Let me put out my notes. Forget that, okay? All right.
We were talking about
next subject.
But when you get out of the service. In any kind of service, man, when you put that badge down, when you put that uniform down, when you hang it up in the closet, who are you? And both you and I have gone through multiple transitional phases, which I'm actually glad to have done multiple, because, it was, I knew what to expect. But I was thinking about you when you got out. I think, ironically, we got out about the same time, or kind of pushed out at about the same year. And I had gone into the civilian sector, was working, and that for me, I don't know, and I can't speak for you, but for me, I kind of had that governor pulled off, and it wasn't till years later that I really even took time to recognize how good I wasn't.
Yeah.
And they're talk about PTSD and all this stuff. It's all these catchphrases, and really, Jimmy and I talked about it, man. It's not like some people, some terrible stuff and things have happened, it'll come up. But a lot of times the grieving and the psychological complexity and turmoil is caused from the loss of the tribe. That was for me, dude. And all of a sudden you're like this excommunicated warrior and just living in the civilian world. And that goes for first responders and all these things. Is a lot of times guys get out whether they want to or not. And it's a challenging type of thing because those jobs, they're your identity. It's not like you're stacking boxes at Home Depot. I'm not hating on Home Depot. I stacked boxes at Home Depot at some point. But my identity wasn't wrapped up in that. I hadn't sweat and dropped blood for it. And that was an emotionally chaotic time for me, man.
Yeah, man. Look. We were talking earlier. It's like, man. I mean, how many people do you know that like get out and go, man, I had a wonderful career? No, it's always the same thing. It's like, I got screwed, bro. Like I got investigated by this asshole, or this or this. In my case, I fought the Navy for 2 years, and part of that fight was in a mental hospital, man. And I saw some dudes with some actual real problems, like no joke, PTSD. Guy saying he saw, grasshoppers crawling on chilies, and a guy come in his room with his head, holding his head, his buddy and stuff, like just crazy stuff like that. And so that was a new perspective I had. I was like, dang, this PTSD is real. But on the other hand, and I even hung myself in that hospital, man. Yeah. It's crazy story as it is. But then when I got out, it forced me to deal with all of that stuff that I was distracted from in the SEALs. But yeah, it's a grieving of a tribe. I see a lot of guys, their pain is coming from actually I think we resort back to, man, I saw this traumatic thing, or I saw this and I had to do this. But really also too, on the other hand, it's like, dude, man, I miss the brotherhood. Yeah. And I filled that void, that unfillable void, with immediate gratification. Like I would fill it with the pool parties, or fill it with, and we met in on a couple, man. And it's like, it's that stuff's fun in the moment, but you always are dealing with the other side of that, as it peaks, there's that valley. And my relationship at the time was very chaotic. I was violent with people in my life, very emotionally reactive. And I remember, meeting up with you during that time. And I think you were in the hospital down in Balboa or something, like at that ward or wherever. Yeah. And those places are dangerous, man, because they'll start clipping you up on these meds. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm no doctor. I think people can know that. But I also know that you have to be very careful about where you're going because, man, I remember I started taking Adderall and shit, dude, and that flew my psychology. It ain't good for me, dude. I mean, some people talk about, you might get more shit done. Yeah, who doesn't? No shit. But at what cost? Yeah. And for me, it was just being emotionally imbalanced. Just my chi was all not centered, and I wasn't who I knew I could be. And that was a period of time where I had no governor and nothing I was training for. And so 5 o'clock came rolling around. I'm going to the gym. Might as well crack a fucking vodka soda, dude. And like I'm shaking. It's never ending.
I was shaking. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Well, it's 5 o'clock here, and I would just be like, well, it's after work. So then that drinking started, and then I was drinking every day, and it wasn't like getting messed up, but just sipping. Why not sip while you're bench pressing? That's just what I was doing.
Yeah, and I think chasing drugs and alcohol and all these things, it's a way to be like, it's a way to keep us from thinking about how we don't have purpose, but in actuality, we do have purpose. Yeah. And I mean, look at your life and look at my life. It's pretty high octane fueled, chasing different things or going into different things like mercenary stuff. Yep. Going the apex of whatever we're in. Is that company always? And it's never enough though.
Yeah.
And that's the problem in my life. It was like never enough. It was always like this is just running a company is not enough. And so eventually there was a meltdown.
Yeah.
With McAfee.
Yeah.
You know, and he was like, you're too much for me to handle. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can't even handle myself.
Yeah. It's like you're trying to fill an unfillable void with a finite experience. Yeah. And so you have all these finite experiences and you're like, well, I'm just going to wake up and do this and do that. And now I'm running a company and it's like, I got to stack more and more and more. When the answer to success is always, I would say, subtractive, right? It's a subtractive process. And, you know,
simplifying your life.
Simplification is the highest form of sophistication, right? And look at things that are clean lines, life's clean. You know, times in my life when things have been orderly and like my path has been very straight and the world's very simple. And you start stacking on extra shit. I go, be very careful about the things you stack. Especially, what do they say in the military? What are the most dangerous points? Transition moments, right? Yeah. Coming in on an over-the-beach attack, as you well know, being an SDV. What's the most dangerous thing? When you're pulling off your wetsuits and fucking trying to pulling off dry suits
when
and
you're
shit.
Exposed, yeah.
When you're exposed, it's like these transitional periods. You're getting off the bird. You're getting out of the trucks. And just like that in life. If you're getting out of a divorce, a relationship, a job, or a career that was your identity, and you're moving into something else, that is the time to get so laser focused on what the fuck you're doing. And I'm talking, do less, man. Do less.
We'll join our regularly scheduled program after these messages.
Hey, guys, when the mission is over, your mind's still spinning, whether you're about to go on an op or you're about to go to sleep, you don't need all that garbage, all those weird drinks. All you need is Halo. Halo is an odorless, flavorless THC mix that you can mix in whatever drink that you want. So make sure you grab that Halo today, all right? So unless you're operating heavy machinery or driving down the road, make sure you go to drinkhalo.com.
Man, let me tell you, ghost bed. Sleep so good, it's scary. Man, you want to wake up terrified, bro, because of how good you slept, man? Let me tell you what. Ghost bed, dude. I like that name too, man. Like that name. Ghostbed.com, promo code OTHER for that solid discount, man. Dude, let me tell you, you and I both know what not sleeping well and not sleeping for days is like, man. Days, weeks. Don't let that psychosis slide in there because you don't have that ghost bed, man.
There's nothing worse than not being able to sleep because you're on some piece of crap mattress.
Grab that ghost bed. Once again, ghostbed.com, promo code OTHER. That's OTHER, man.
Like being suspended in space. Ghost bed.
I return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah, do less and find purpose, you know. I will say some of the wiser choices that I made were and there wasn't many coming out of the SEALs, but some of the wiser choices were getting involved. Like I got involved with that sex trafficking. I remember you doing
that. That was an interesting kind of thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't as sexy as I wanted it to be.
Never
but
is.
No, it wasn't. It's never what it seems. Like SDV, it's like, oh man, that's crazy. It's clandestine, and you're going in this little sub, and you're there like shaking, like dying. You know what I mean? And you're like, this is not fun at all. So simplifying your life and getting back to the fundamentals in your life, man, basics.
Bro, but for me, it was especially during that time. It's the moral simplification, right? Like, you know, during that time, I was very much, I hadn't really come to terms or gotten clear of what was right and what was wrong.
Yeah.
For the most part. And I'm not talking about pushing grandmas in the street. Like I always say, dude, it's this, for most men, it's not that stuff. It's not robbing people or doing fuck.
No, it's not like the down and it's not like the dirty stuff.
It's the entertaining the DM, the entertaining, the going out and be it, you know, looking at other women and or all these things, cheating, whatever it might be. It's all these small things that get guys or going out with the boys later and then, you know, not being attentive to your responsibilities. It's these small things, and there might not be big where they might be in that one simple instance. But when you put all of them into a bucket,
Yeah.
And you start looking at weeks and months and years. And then dudes are like, man, my life's in shambles. And I'll work with guys and I'll be dealing with it. And I go, well, let's unravel this. Let's unravel it. Where are we, first of all? All right. What's broken down? What have you lost? Then, okay, what do we need to get back? What do we need to do?
And talk is cheap too, you know. Like I used to talk a big game in the SEALs about being loyal. I was like, loyal to the brotherhood, but I'm cheating on my girl all the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so it's like this dichotomous situation where you're like the biggest hypocrite in the world.
Yeah.
But you don't want to address it. You're just like, no, dude, I'm gonna push it off to the side with all my different vices.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna deal with it someday down the road. Well, unfortunately, that sometimes catches up to you.
Well, dude, nobody gets away with anything. Look at how many great men in recent times, the past, whatever, that have been brought down because of lust, brought down because of immediate gratification.
Yep.
I heard a rapper say something interesting, and he goes, man, don't give away your house for a hotel room, man. And I was like, damn, I get the chills when I think about it. It's like a heavy statement when you think about what that actually means, right? That immediate gratification, the this, the that. And, you know, you got a lot of men living in, staying in hotel rooms. They got a house at home, dude. Think about that. Why? Why do we have these, that once the devil comes knocking, like, are you going to answer? And for a lot of my life, I answered. I opened that fucking door.
Always.
And I had a justification of why I would. Oh, it's not a big deal. Or whatever, you had a hard week. Or it's not, it is what it is. Or nobody find out. It's like, what's the harm? This is what everybody else does. And the truth is like, cool, maybe it is what everybody else does. But man, should you be doing it? The minute that authentic voice starts speaking to you, you start to quiet it more, you're fucked, because now that authentic voice, right? I call it the authentic voice of God. A lot of people call it that, but their conscience congruency is what we're talking about. If you're not congruent with what your conscience is telling you to do, you're going to experience massive levels of friction. Massive.
Yeah, I can remember being at a company party with John McAfee, and here I started out as a security, his bodyguard, as you know, and then worked my way up to running the company eventually. And then he was like, aren't you going to thank me? And I thank you for what, sir? I'm eating ramen noodles and your guards are eating like Red Lobster every day. You know what I mean? He's like working me down to my bones. And he was like, I made you CEO on the Twitter, like I announced it. And so I was running the show, right? And I remember at a company party, I was drinking hard. I started drinking all the time. I started getting sloppy.
Yeah.
Running the company, double scotches, all day long.
Yeah.
Single malt scotch. And I was at this company party. Everybody was standing around. His guards, people were standing around. And he walked right up to me, and he was drunk. And I was drunk, and I was laughing. I'll never forget. The music was on. He went straight up to me in front of everybody. He looked me dead in the eyes. And he said, son, and I said, yes, sir. And I was having a great time because we're making a lot of money, partying all the time. He says, when I started drinking? And I said, no, sir, when? I thought it was a joke or something. He goes, when I became a success. And I was like, and I just put my drink down. I mean, he encouraged me to drink, but it was always a test.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that. It reminded me of what my dad said. He was like, if you're going to drink, if you're going to have a good time, drink to like appreciate the situation, like a celebration, a celebratory thing, and not, to depreciate, not because you're, and he made a great point. I put down the drinks for a long time after that, at least, and I got my act together because he was telling me, look, man, John McAfee and a lot of like successful people you'll see out there, they don't start to party, they don't start to do stuff until they've actually kind of made it, you know, and then you'll see a huge downfall. Like McAfee, he was like 40 years old when he created McAfee Antivirus, and then he started. That's when he started partying and smoking. Before that, he was a really clean guy.
Yeah.
People don't really realize that. He was super clean.
Yeah, and that's an interesting kind of a piece, and that peaks and valleys. Right? You get those peaks and valleys. You get the success, and then we break it down. And then you experience, a lot of us do, you get the success, the peak, the valley, and the best answer is to keep climbing. And I heard a great statement from somebody. They said, the best way to view it is there's no peak. you're just on the hill.
Yeah.
And I go, damn, dude, I kind of like that because then you can't fall off. You just keep
Yeah,
climbing up.
It's setting expectations. If you expect a lot from your girl, like when you first meet your girl, she's like, "You're my Giro." You know, my girl's Russian, so she's like Giro. Other H's or G's.
Yeah.
You know, Giro. I was like, I like that.
Yeah.
I like being the hero.
Yeah.
You know, but if you set that expectation all the time, and then you start sucking everybody's energy for your validation,
Yeah.
you're setting yourself up for a disaster. You're going to fall on your face every single time, especially when you give over people the right to validate you. Now you've given them the right to invalidate you.
Oh, dude. What, dude? McAfee's, dude, his vices must have been gnarly, dude. I mean, I remember just seeing some things on him. I mean, he was, young girls. I mean, didn't he have a chick that was like a former prostitute that was with him always, and then he'd have other, but then also with some weird drugs from China and shit. Right?
I remember the FBI were like, "Are you going to talk to us?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No, I didn't do anything wrong. John McAfee didn't do anything wrong." And I was like pretty dead set on that. And they were like, "Well, let me just tell you something. I'll never forget. It was a DOJ prosecutor. She said, I just want to tell you something, Jimmy, before you go down that route." She goes, "John McAfee, you obviously don't know what we do." And I so there was some manipulation there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that John McAfee before, in Belize, and him doing that and maybe possible murder stuff. I knew him kind of in his prime, I would say.
Yeah.
Like that prime crypto time and all that. And they were basically saying, he was one sick mother effer. I don't know what they were really going towards, but I mean, he had some dark stuff going on, but he kept me sheltered from a lot of it, but I was living with him 24 hours. So I saw everything that was going on for a year. I'm not one of these guys that I was like, "Well, I don't know what happened," and you're like living with the
the
people.
You're like, yeah, dude.
But from what I saw, he was super, super loyal and faithful to Janice, to his wife and stuff. Like he'd get massages and stuff, and you're like, "Oh, is he getting a massage or not?" I don't know, But other than that, he was always doing like white powder stuff. I like go in his room. He was always like, I found him dead at one point, bro. Yeah. And always finding rolled up hundreds everywhere. Yeah. I'd get him, I'd clean him off, shake him out, give him back to him. Be like, "Where do you find this?"
Hang him up on the clothespin.
"You steal this from me?" And I'd be like, "Sir, it was behind your dresser, like 20 of them."
Yeah.
Like with all this white powder everywhere, But yeah, he was off the chart, man. Wild. He was always making his own stuff. He'd be like, "Son, I need you to go pick up this package. It's from China." And I'd be like, "Okay." I need you to go buy a bunch of Sudafed from Walmart. And I'm like, "Okay." He'd be like, "You don't know what this is for, right?" I was like, "No, I think because you have a cold, right?" He was like, "That's right." Okay. Man, it goes into that transition, Cav.
Mm-hmm.
Like, man, when I got out of the SEALs, man, I was lost because I put all my identity in that.
Yeah.
I'm a SEAL, this, with the honor, right? The badge. And so when I got out, I was kind of so lost, man, that when I found that position with him, I remember telling my wife that I lost. I told her, I was like, "I'll never go back to what I was. I'm willing to die here. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I was willing to do anything and everything illegal.
Yeah, to keep that frame, that position.
To keep that power, that influence, the money, everything. It wasn't even about the money,
Yeah, bigger than that.
At one point I like dropped $10K in the airport on the ground. I was drinking coffee, and my girl was running around picking it up, and I could care less about it. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. When you're making all that cheese, it loses its value.
Yeah.
And all I cared about, though, was the accolades from McAfee. "Hey, I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah.
You're doing a great job, son. I'm going to get, you've got half of my kingdom, you got the keys to half of the," and I had his, I had pretty much everything he had in it. I had pretty much everything that he had in my name.
We'll join our regularly scheduled program after these messages.
Hey guys, this episode was brought to you by T1RX. Now, this pre-workout supplement, I know there's a lot out there, and I've tried probably like 20 or 30 of them, and I'm telling you right now, T1RX was not only created for our tactical community, but it was created by operators for you. So whether you're stacking those wins in your business, or you're stacking them plates in the gym, you want to get sliced, diced, jacked, racked, and stacked, get on that T1RX today. Make sure you go grab it today, man. They are mission focused, and I'm telling you right now, if I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about what all is in it because it's pretty dang incredible stuff. So go check them out right now. All right, so remember, T1RX is built to serve. It's mission ready. So go build your stack today at T1RX.com.
Revenge is an act of passion. Vengeance is an act of justice. Injuries are revenged. Crimes are avenged. Almost a century ago, big pharmaceutical companies re-engineered medical school curriculum and faculty with one goal: putting profit before progress. Anyone pushing back against the medical matrix they carefully crafted was threatened, silenced, censored, financially ruined, or worse. They are the problem. We are the solution.
You're clear to engage. Initials Mike Juliet Alpha. You're clear to engage with weapons. You're clear to engage with weapons.
Knock up that route, see how far away easy is.
We return you now to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
You know, and I thought it was a great thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're like, man, this guy's swell.
This is great. And then
Yeah.
the FBI's like, why you got a Bentley and all this stuff? And I'm like, this guy's smart, man. He screwed me. So
You know, it's interesting when you kind of start dealing with people at some other levels because, you know, we've had some dealings with guys up at, you know,
yeah,
hedge fund
real.
managers. It's strange up at that level because you start to realize how dark it is, man. Like, and I'm not saying everybody at some, but there's like at certain levels, like
Super
Jimmy and I
dark.
could do a deal on a handshake. Like, and I've learned that all contracts are really is just whoever's got the most money can fucking fuck everybody else. It's just more specific ways to fuck people. And that's why I like communication where it's just clear. It's like, are we under an understanding about what the thing is? Like, we're building this house. We're going to split the money in half. It is what it is. All right, cool. And keep it simple. Maybe I'm kind of a knuckle dragger, but I always think when I've seen some of the interactions behind the doors, like I remember one guys that we know, and he had a partner that was super close to him, and I guess they had a couple bad business deals, and they were together. He was in the same office right next to him and doing his thing and working, and they'd go out to lunch, and he goes, and one day he looks at me, he goes, you know what? I can't wait it. He goes, I'm just building him up so I can fucking break him. And I was like, damn.
It's terrifying.
Terrifying, bro. Just to be like, to have somebody so close to you, just so you can crush them at any point at the moment when you want to. For me, we're just got that warrior spirit, and a lot of guys watching have it. It's like, bro, I'll wear my heart on my sleeve. I fuck up, man. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I've been left out in the fucking wet and got rusted a few times. There's just, but what I'll always do is I'll always try to do exactly what I say I'm going to do, and the money is never the driving force. I like achievement. I like working with people I like. Yeah, the money. You got to have some level of. There's nothing
true
more.
soldier when it comes to that. I agree with you,
Bro, there's nothing more unsafe than a super broke person. That's one thing.
Yep.
Is just being a martyr and being fucking broke. Those people are fucking selfish as shit because they'll justify anything.
They're capable of anything.
They're capable of anything. So there is a happy medium where it's like, okay, you're comfortable, you have things you like, and you're happy with what you got. That's the key.
Yeah, I think, you know, John McAfee, he taught me a lot. You know, I used to write down his rules. I called it the Black Book, the McAfee Black Book.
Yeah.
I would write down these like just golden nuggets, and I was always like, John, I'll write up this contract, or I'll get this contract and negotiate. He'd be like, what do you need a contract for? I said, contracts are like kind of like he's stupid. You know, he'd be like, contracts are meant to be broken, Jimmy. Like if you do a contract, it's going to be broken. That's why people do contracts, so they'll be broken eventually. Like he had all these like crazy things and NDAs and so he was just a guy on his handshake. But I'll never forget he once told me. I think it goes along with like what we're talking about with that loyalty, that brotherhood, and like, no man, my word is my word. You know what I mean? I was trying to I was trying to learn everything that he could give me, and he would give it to me, this business. And he once said, you know, Jimmy, you'd make a great businessman one day. You know, I'm talking like big time businessman. He says, but you got one problem. And I said, sir, I said, you tell me right now, and I'll freaking destroy that problem. Yeah. I'll get rid of it. I don't care what it is. I'll sacrifice my wife, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like I was crazy. And he was like, no, you can't fix this problem. And I said, no. I said, tell me. I said, tell me, sir. He says, you don't want to know. And I said, just tell me and I'll fix it. He says, it's he says, you got a heart. He says, you can't fix that.
Yeah.
And so he was basically saying, you know, your heart, you know, you can make a lot of money only to a certain point.
To a certain point.
But you gotta be at some point you gotta be a snake. You know, like
there's like a decision at some point. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
There's always
man.
exceptions. But from what I've seen,
course.
it's just, and I'm not hating on success either. I'm saying get as successful as you can.
Get as successful as possible.
But keep your soul, man, and say, what is that scripture? It's, what do you gain if you gain the whole world, if you lose your soul?
If you lose your soul, yeah.
Right, in the process. And so what we talk about here, what we talk about in your circles and the people around you, man, make sure your messaging is clear, man. Make sure everybody you're working with is on the level, who's for the game. And talking about that transition point, getting back to that, during this process, I hadn't really learned all that yet. Like, I had got out of the service, and I was dealing with these entities, and I'm like, oh, people just do what they say they're going to do. And, that's like not an issue. And next thing you know, and granted, I wasn't correct either. So what I will say is, because I was taking drugs and not clear, I didn't see all the signs till way later. And I also was stacking my own karmic debt and problems it was creating more people's hands into my pie that I could have kept at bay. But it was 100% something I had to learn, which was, not everyone's on the up and up, man.
No.
And that was a hard lesson for me to learn and very painful too.
And know your worth. It goes back to that confidence in yourself and knowing your worth a lot. You know, even after the SEAL teams, man, I just didn't know my worth. And what I mean by that, it's not like I'm worth a lot. It just means like because I had that, because I didn't know my true worth, I wasn't able to see when other people were manipulating me.
Yeah.
Like maybe McAfee, you know, like with the way he could see how I was. And so he was able to manipulate a lot of people just how I want him to be. And so he's like, oh, you're going to be my son. I'm proud of you. Yeah. And he could trust me and give me that.
And he knows that's exactly what you wanted.
Yeah. And so you gotta know your worth, know what you're worth, you know, and don't back down from that either, you know. And yeah, I'm all about success, man. I'm all about making the big money, but you gotta develop that core foundation of that moral compass. Because if you make all that money and that moral compass isn't there like it was for me, you know, I told myself I was going to do the right thing all the time. Yeah. But I found myself doing all the wrong things with the money.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And here's the thing is, the problem is that when you're disciplined-ish or moral-ish, right, that's the worst, because now you're not even fully committed into either way. Yeah. And so you're experience this internal, dude, you know the definition of integrity, integral, right? It means not being divided against oneself. Mm-hmm. Not being divided. Man. And so think about that internally. When we see ourselves and want to be one way, and then we're doing these things that are kind of combating against that. So now your integrity's in question. So what happens to something doesn't have integrity? It falls apart, right? Or it breaks apart.
Yeah, and
that's what I experienced.
Yeah, and the biggest thing is you gotta have integrity with yourself. And I'm not Mr. freaking 100% over here. I'm not keeping 100 all the time with myself. Yep. But something that I practice, I was telling you this early, is it's like a spirit of excellence. Like when I walk out on the street, it's like, am I gonna compromise myself and like check out that girl and be like googly eyed and all this stuff, or I'm gonna keep my eyes forward and have integrity in myself and understand, no, because if I'm compromising on myself, you know, I will eventually compromise on things externally. If
it's the pulling of the thread. Inside. You pull on the thread, and it pulls the thread, and it pulls the thread, and it pulls the thread until it completely unravels, and it's those small kinks in the armor. Yep. And we were talking about you don the armor.
Down the armor every day.
And so when you don that armor, at least you're preparing yourself and understanding that there is a spiritual war happening.
You dang right.
Right? There's a spiritual war happening, and it's internal, it's external. And when you're operating through the day, recognize, bro, there's so many days I want to take that left and not that right. I feel it every day, man. It's like, take that left, Taylor. Man, it's not a big deal. And most days I'm right? And then there's some chinks in the armor, right? Definitely a lot more in the past where it was, whatever. And what that causes, the damage in our lives and the people we love, it's all consuming, because especially if you know better, especially if you know and you're aware that you're going against what your conscience is telling you to do, you're gonna get karmically violated, bro.
And if you've been to battle out there, or you're a police officer on the streets, or whatever you are, like first responder, or especially a veteran out there and stuff, you actually know all about this war we're talking about. Because every single day I used to wake up in Blackwater. I've told this story before, but we would wake up, and as I was going out to the trucks to load the 240 on, the belt-fed machine gun rounds, the ammunition, passing off the ammo cans, and down in my armor, as I was putting on my armor, sometimes I would hear a thud in the background. With the music, the Muslim music, and then you hear boom, and it would shake the ground. And you could actually feel it vibrating in the ground, those V-bids. And we were about to go through that gate. Yep. And so there was a war zone ahead of me. And I can remember one of the guys, that his name was Zen. He was a big old black dude. He was like muscled up. And he was on top of the thing. He goes, Haas, what you doing? Why you stopping? And I was like, and I looked at it because I heard that thud. Yeah. And it was a gate going off. It was the whole checkpoint 1 or 2 just blowing smithereens. And we're about to go through there. And he looked at me. He's like, what are you doing? Why are you stopping? And I'd be like, yeah, you're right, man. Just keep on going. And, fortunately, we made it out. But it's the same thing every single morning. Yeah. If you don't realize that there's those bombs going off outside your door, then you're going to walk into that not with your armor slung off, no ammo, not ready to go.
Not prep, man. Not hot. Condition 1, dude. Man, we love everybody. Thank you for spending a little time. Once again, hp.trt.com. OTH20. And man, this has been a good one, but we got more to come, dude.
Let's go.
Be smart.